Are you a fan of pro wrestling, comedy, and combat sports? Then we have the podcast for you because we cover that and much, much more.
Do you like to debate with your friends? Do we have the perfect segment for you? It's the 531, where we take any given subject, break it down to a top 5. From there, we debate it down to 3 and then into that number 1 spot.
If you want to get a hold of us, find us on our social medias. Search Working Fans Podcast on any major social media platform. And if you want to find the podcast, search for us on any major podcast platform, as well as YouTube.
Working Fans Podcast. We put in the work so you don't have to.
Welcome back for Working Fans Presents Horror Business, episode 12. And although the weekend's almost over, we are not done with Horror Business episodes. What we are done with is the Nightmare on Elm Street series, because today we are talking the Nightmare on Elm Street 2010 remake. Movie is an hour and 35 minutes, directed by Samuel Bayer. It came out in 2010, and it is rated R, as I think all the Nightmare on Elm Streets have been. It had a $35 million estimated budget, and its opening weekend in the U.S. and Canada was $32,902,299, and that opening weekend was May 2nd, 2010. In the U.S. and Canada, it grossed $63,075,011. The gross worldwide was $115,695,182. Now, the basic story for the movie is like any Nightmare on Elm Street. Death stalks the dreams of several young adults to claim its revenge on the killing of Freddy Krueger. Chastised by this finger-bladed demon, it is the awakening of old memories and denials of past of retribution that spurns this hellish vision of a dreamlike state and turns death into a nightmare reality. And basically, these kids that Freddy had victimized in real life had totally forgotten about him. And now that they're starting to have dreams about him and remember him, he's getting stronger and coming after them. Now, the major actors, Jackie Earle Haley played Freddy Krueger. Rooney Mara played Nancy Holbrook. Kyle Gallner played Quentin Smith, Katie Cassidy, Chris Fowles, and Thomas Decker played Jesse Brown. Now, I like this movie. I thought Jackie Earle Haley, the guy that played Rorschach, made a good Freddy Krueger. He looked different. He was very menacing. In this one, it was a little more overt that he was a child molester and not just a child killer. I think it was always kind of implied in those 80s movies, but maybe just back then they didn't want to be so out with it. But it was kind of like a crux of this movie, and I was very surprised that people didn't like this movie to the degree that they did, because I thought it was great. IMDb gave it a 5.2 out of 10. And let me look at my notes here. Like the movie, dude that played Rorschach and Watchmen was a good Freddy. I enjoyed the familiarity of scenes from the original. I heard that was one thing they got kind of knocked for it, because it was like they couldn't come up with original ideas. And I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but this felt much darker than the original. I thought it was a good movie. So I would definitely recommend it to you. If you were a fan of the original Nightmare on Elm Street and did not see this, I think it'd be worth checking out. If you've never checked out A Nightmare on Elm Street, you could probably, if you want like an 80s horror movie vibe, I recommend the originals, but this was a good horror remake. And as always, these episodes are brought to you by The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 1, written by Vinnie Berry, available at WrestleVille.com, where you can also get his first book, Lance by Chance, Wrestling is Yvonne Eric. And all the following books that I'm going to list off now are available on Amazon, including Super Vows and Potted Dib, both written by a friend of the show and my More Perfect Union podcast host, co-host Kevin Kelton. I'll Be Here All Week and All That's Left, written by Ward Anderson, as well as his stand-up special. Blood and Fire, the unbelievable real-life story of wrestling's original Sheik by Brian R. Solomon. How Not to Suck at Comedy by Pat Oates. Matt Memories by John Arezzi and Greg Oliver. If you're an artist in Connecticut and looking for studio time, check out the great people over at Connecticut People Records. And if you're on YouTube and looking for some entertainment, look for our wrestling commentary, home of New Heights Wrestling. And I'd like to think this is everybody's favorite part of the show, the trivia for movies. Now, let us know in the comments what you thought about this movie. Did you see it? Did you like it? Would you recommend it to someone else? Now, Freddy's sweater was knitted by Judy Graham, the same woman who knitted Freddy's sweater in the original Nightmare on Elm Street movies. That's a nice little prop thing. And if she knitted the original, she can probably do something close, maybe a little bit different. You can give insight. That was, I thought, a cool fact. Now, producer Brad Fuller has stated that while the film was a financial success, the backlash from fans, critics, and industry professionals alike was so great that the phones at Platinum Dunes didn't ring for 2 years. They wouldn't make a film until The Purge, which came out in 2013. He admits that this film was handled poorly and a step back for the company. It was decided that this would be their last horror remake. And I think that's really a shame because I like this movie. I didn't think it was really bad at all. Now, Wes Craven, having signed the sequel and franchise rights away when making the original just to get it financed, had no involvement with the remake. It was not even aware it was being made until well into production. Robert Englund gave his personal blessing to Jack Earl Haley to replace him as Freddy, saying the torch has well been passed. Rooney Mara hated being in this movie so much that she almost quit acting altogether. Jackie Earl Haley scratched his corneas with the contact lenses he wore, delaying production for a short time. He also had the whites of his eyes turn blood red for 2 weeks because of that. So imagine playing that horrific monster and then the actual costume, much like we heard with Robert Englund, having that effect on you. Now, this was originally intended to be a prequel movie, but that idea was dropped. And to pay as much homage and respect to Wes Craven's original film as possible, many iconic scenes from the original were reused. Unfortunately, this drew heavy criticism from critics and fans alike, who saw it as plagiarizing the original and demonstrating a lack of imagination. And I didn't think that was the case at all. I thought it gave you kind of like, you had that familiarity with the original movie, so you saw these things that you were aware of that you already connect with Freddy. And then on top of that, you have a new Freddy, a new way of filming. So I don't think that's unoriginal at all. Yeah, I think it's a way to, like they said, pay homage to it. Now, I'm done with this review, and I am done with A Nightmare on Elm Street. I by no means hate the movies, but where they made 6, 7 of them, you could have gotten away with 2, 3, and you could have had like 2, 3 awesome movies. You'd have Freddy versus Jason and then the remake. So I'd have to say for Nightmare on Elm Street overall, I got to give it to the first 3. And Freddy versus Jason is my favorites that I've reviewed in this series. Now, thank you for making it to day 9 with us. It's Sunday. Work week starts back up tomorrow, and we will start back up tomorrow with Twilight Zone, the movie. I am very much looking forward to covering this, and I can't wait to talk about it with you. Have a good day.